Okay, this video is a little bit of a sneak peek into one of the tasks we've been undertaking recently. Within S1000D we have a foldout element, and this foldout element is what allows an author to insert a larger illustration into a publication. So if, for example, we have an A4 portrait publication, the author can insert a foldout, and it's telling the style sheets that this illustration is going to be an A3 foldout, A3 landscape page. Now, if we very quickly dive into the specification, so this is S1000D issue 4.2, chapter 6.2.1. It's only a small chapter, so if we just very quickly scroll down to the bottom, because we have a business or decision point that is all about the presentation of foldouts in the page-orientated publications. Now, our style sheets currently support the end of the publication method, but this bit of work is looking at also supporting the interspersed. Now, if I revert back to Oxygen XML and have a look at the S1000D issue 6 spike dataset, because they have provided an example of an interspersed foldout. So if I open up that data module, scroll down through the ID status section, when we get to the content itself, here we go. We have the description, we have level para, then we have the title, para, and then there's our foldout. If I just minimize the foldout, so what we've got is a para before and a para after. So this is an interspersed foldout. Pardon me. Now, if I print this data module, and what happens is the PDF opens and it displays the ID status section. So I'm just going to scroll into the PDF file to the content itself. So what we have is a title and a para. Now this is an A4 portrait page. So before we can switch to the A3 landscape, we need to, and this is A4 portrait recto, we need to have a verso blank back. Then we jump into the A3 landscape recto page, and there's the illustration. Now, before we can switch back to A4 portrait again for the rest of the content, we need to have an A3 landscape verso blank back, and then we jump into the content itself back to the A4 portrait. And that is the interspersed nature. So what you've got is some content, A4 portrait, then you have A3 landscape, and then back to A4 portrait. Now, as with all things in S1000D, sorry, just very quickly, the whole, what we've been doing, and this is quite an important aspect of it, is this is a vendor neutral approach. So this method is working in Apache FOP. It doesn't matter which version of FOP, but it's working in Apache FOP, and it works on Antenna House and RenderX as well. So it's the important part of the work we've been doing was trying to find a vendor neutral method. Now, as with all things in S1000D, it then really comes down to the testing. Now this particular test file, and this is just a very quick demonstration of the kind of testing that we're doing. This is a test file, and what I've done is I've inserted some comments so we can visually see where we're switching from A4 portrait to A3 landscape. So the publication or the printed output starts at A4 portrait, so you've got your ID status section in A4 portrait, and the content itself, this title and para, needs to be in A4 portrait. We then need to switch to A3 landscape for the foldout. So foldout number 1 is in an A3 landscape page. And then we have some more content after the foldout, so we need to switch back to A4 portrait to display the title and the para that follows. Then we were jumping back into another foldout, so we again need to switch to A3 landscape for foldout number 2. And this is the crux of the testing that we're doing, is after foldout number 2, we're having to check in the style sheets, we're having to check, is there any more A4 portrait content? If there is, then we need to revert back to A4 portrait. If there isn't, then we need to stay on A3 landscape. And in this particular test file, there is no A4 portrait additional text. So it should, from foldout number 2 to foldout number 3, it should remain on A3 landscape, and it should finish on an A3 landscape page. So if we print this data module, and again PDF opens and it displays the ID status section. So if I scroll into the content, what we've got is the title and the para, and this is an A4 portrait recto page, so we need to have a verso blank back. Then we switch to foldout number 1 in an A3 landscape foldout page. And we know that we have some content after the foldout number 1, so we need to have a blank back on the foldout, and then we jump back into an A4 portrait for the additional content. So we've got the title and the para. So this is again back in an A4 portrait recto page. Now we're going to switch back to A3 landscape, so we need to have a verso blank back, and then we're jumping back into, so foldout number 2 is in an A3 landscape page, and as I demonstrated, as I showed before, at foldout number 2 we need to stay in A3 landscape to the end of the publication. So in foldout number 2 we have the verso blank back, then we're foldout number 3 is retaining the A3 landscape page, and then the very last page of the publication is the blank back for that foldout. And again, just to emphasize the point, this is done with Apache FOP, and this is a vendor neutral approach, so it'll work with all of the FO processors, and that's where the majority of the work has been recently, and this is just one of the tasks we've been doing. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight